This equation, the variable is to the second power. So anytime our equation has a variable with a degree higher than 1, the first thing we want to do is move all of the terms to one side so they're equal to 0. When you're moving things side to side, you're using addition and subtraction to move them. I would really like the number in front of the variable squared to be positive, because eventually I'm going to be factoring. And when you factor, it's nice to have the leading coefficient positive. So even though I could subtract 3v squared to make this equal 0, I'm going to choose to add 15v to both sides. So if I add 15v to both sides, I have 3v squared plus 15v equal to 0. So now that I've used addition and subtraction to move everything to one side equal to 0, the next thing I'm going to do is factor this. Factoring really means turn it into a multiplication problem. We only have 2 terms here, so when there are 2 terms, you have 2 options to factor. One option is to look for what's in common to both and take it out front. And the second option, when there's only 2 terms, is the difference of squares. We learned that if we have a squared minus b squared, then it factors to a plus b times a minus b. This is divisible by 3, and the 15 is divisible by 3, so there is a 3 in common. V times v and v, so I can take a v and a 3 out front. So taking that 3v out front, if I take a 3v out of 3 times v, what's left over is a v. And then if I take a 3v out of 3 times 5 times v, I'm left with a 5, and this equals 0. So what I have right now is the red part multiplied by this part is equal to 0. And if things multiply together to get 0, the only way that happens is if one of those things is 0. So I'm just going to say it as red times blue equals 0. So either the red equals 0 or the blue equals 0. Let's find the numbers that make the red one 0 and find any numbers that make the blue one equal 0. So I'm going to set the red one equal to 0 and solve. To solve that, get rid of multiply by 3, so divide by 3, and I get 0. And then in this one here, the blue one, if I set the v plus 5 equal to 0, subtract 5, and I get negative 5. If I substitute 0 back in here, 3 times 0 is 0, 0 plus 5 is 5, and 0 multiplied by 5 is 0. If I plug negative 5 in here, 3 times negative 5 is negative 15, negative 5 plus 0 is 0, and negative 15 times 0 is 0. We're using the 0 property, which means when things multiply together to get 0, then one of those pieces has to be 0. But don't forget that step 1 is to move everything to one side and set it equal to 0, and then you can factor and set each of those factors equal to 0 and solve.